So, you get the interview at the NFB. Did you land the job?
Yeah, I was lucky. It was amazing. I ended up working, well, first of all I got to know all the people, you know, Roman and Colin Lowe, Roman Kreuder, Wolf Koenig, Tom Daly, and Norm McLaren, you know. And it was just an amazing time, you know. It was right on the Ottawa River, on a little place called Green Island. We were in it was a wartime government building, a two-story affair, and across on John Street was the main National Film Board, which was an old water mill, right next door to the very swish and fancy French embassy, just beyond this big fence there. It was a great location, and I think, if I remember, my very first job was working with Grant Monroe, who was one of the two guys in Neighbours, who did all the clawing and, you know, that stuff. You've seen Neighbours. And we did a film for the RCAF called Huff and Puff, and it was about a thing called hyperventilation alkalosis. It's what happened to jet pilots when they're with their oxygen masks. If they're taking too much oxygen in and they get into some sort of situation where they're over, the CO2 level goes down or goes up, something happens and you black out.
So how many films did you end up making for the NFB?
Oh boy. Well, there was that one, certainly. Huff and Puff was the first one. Then, this is in Ottawa, then we took a thing about fish spoilage in Halifax. I thought, wow, what a boring subject, you know. But anyway, because I loved the title, we called it Fish Spoilage Control, and wrote it with Joe Koenig, Wolf's brother, and it was a big success. And I was told, even not that many years ago, fishermen were still showing it on the, you know, on the East Coast, about when you catch fish, you freeze it quickly as you can, and when it's filleted, you've got to watch for bacteria on the cutting boards. It's all about that. And it was fun. Eldon Rathbone did a great score for it. And yeah,
we're talking about a film score for a film about fish spoilage.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were very serious about film scores. Yeah. I mean, everything. You know, Eldon. He was very good at that stuff. And but that was the only two things in that 2 years in Ottawa, because you know they usually take at least a year to do a short film, at least.
Yeah.
Sometimes much longer, and then came to Ottawa, to Montreal in '76, in 65. No, 56. What am I talking about? Heavens above! And oh, that one.
I'll get it.
Yes. And then '56. Wow, it was out on Metropolitan Boulevard, which is like farmland in those days. Well, all kinds of exciting stuff came along. We did it. I was really, because of my experience in doing some little commercials and things previously, so I did go back for a short time in 1955 for 2 months, working with that same guy, Richard, who had gone back. He went back to England after a year. He didn't get the job at the film board, and we worked together with Eddie Radich, actually the original Animal Farm pig animator, and on Savile Row we had a tiny little studio these guys had set up, and we did a little tiny black and white commercial for Guinness.
Yeah.
But then I came back to the film board after 2 months or 3 months, and as I got back, they moved to Ottawa and to Montreal, and I was really into doing short things. I liked the idea of even 10, 20, 30-second spots, and we did a lot of those kind of things. Norman was very good at doing that stuff too.
So let's jump ahead a little bit. How do you end up with Buster Keaton doing a movie for the National Film Board on Canada and the whole CN thing?
Well, gosh, when was it? 60. When did we do that film?
65?
64, I think. Did it come out in 65?
think so.
Yeah, I think we did it in '64. Well, I'd messed around with. I'd already done a little live action film called The Ride.
Okay.
Which is, I don't know if you've seen it. It's a little. I play a chauffeur and chase a guy who's got out of control on a toboggan. We shot it up in the Laurentians, and it's on the internet thing, you know, the film board. And so I thought, wow, I like this live action stuff. It's kind of fun, and I had a bit of experience because of that Two's Company thing we'd made on that amateur film way back when, and there were some odd little bits and pieces we did, and then I don't know, what, 60, I did that, and then I did, with my financial career, the Stephen Leacock animation thing.
I saw that one this morning.
Oh really?
Yeah.
That was a good little film, good story, good writer.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And then there were all kinds of little things came along, and then one day going to the film board, I saw on an open rail going across a road somewhere, I saw a guy zip across on one of these rail cars, and I thought, wow, that's an amazing image. And I thought, wouldn't that be a great thing to do a travelogue, go across Canada on one of those things? And at that time I was thinking of some sort of quasi-animation photographic thing. I wasn't really thinking of live action. And then one day in the cafeteria of the film board, where you met all kinds of amazing people over the years. I mean, I even remember once meeting the Mothers of Invention, Frank Zappa and all those guys were there. They'd come up for some big special deal, and they couldn't get any service in any of the hotels because they were so bohemian and wacky looking. And they were amazing characters. Ravi Shankar was there at one point when he was doing Claude Jutras' film, the
Did you chat with
Cherry
Frank?
Tale. Yeah, well, it's funny, I spoke to a long blonde-haired guy who was a drummer, and I just vaguely remember Zappa there. You know, I mean, I can't remember.
Okay.
You know, it was a, but I remember, and I think it was for a Don Owen film. He managed got the Mothers of Invention, and that was, when was that? Oh, that was '65 or something, before Expo. Anyway, we'll get back to the Keaton film. So we were talking about in the cafeteria about this idea. I was talking about this idea about, you know, doing a film about a character going across Canada, and we'd maybe use photographs, a bit of live action stuff. And somehow Keaton's name came up. And I said, oh God, he's great, but isn't he, he's dead now, isn't he? And somebody said, no, he's in this new film, Mad, Mad World.
Yes.
Was it? Or Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, one of those. Mm-hmm. I think he was in both of them. Maybe.
He was. Mad Mad was his last movie before he died.
Okay. So I said, okay, well, Keaton, could we get Keaton? And someone said, well, why not find out? And then we somehow found out he was in New York doing a film, a Beckett film, for, I think, directed by a guy called Alan Schneider. From him. It was called Film. Very strange little black and white film. Anyway, when we found out he was there, I got permission to go down and meet him, and I'd written basically the Railrodder, just a half page. That's all we had. There was no script, and there was a couple of the gags I'd already storyboarded, like the going in the tunnel and shooting the ducks and stuff like that. And Buster liked the idea, and he said, well, if you put a wild duck into the menu at one point, I'll go for it. You know, so that was one of the deals. And I think you see in Spot in the documentary,
yes,
cameraman gets a wild duck, and sure enough we had it. But the CN were fantastic. We could never have made that film without being a federal outfit that could afford 5,000 miles of railroad.
Oh, for sure.
Across Canada, you know.
Was Buster difficult to negotiate with and to bring into the project other than the wild duck?
No. He said, very rough voice, he said, well, it's a crazy idea, but I'd do it. That's what he said. Yep. And we left like that. I don't know what he got paid. It was probably not that much, but...
I watched the Railrodder this morning, and for a man his age, there's some pretty rigorous stuff that you probably couldn't do today.
Yeah, pretty difficult. Well, you know, he had gone through. Yeah, he broke his neck at one point. Not on our film, but I think on the General. He didn't find out for a year or two. But you know, there was a lot of alcohol during the 30s.
Yeah.
So he wasn't. He was really. He looked a lot older than he was. He wasn't that old. I mean, he was. What was he?
60s.
He died at 69, I think.
Yeah.
So in our film, he was 68, 69. You know.
Now, you yourself, you were in your 30s when you shot that, right?
Yeah, early 30s.
Were you at all intimidated trying to direct someone that had directed some major films himself? Was he generous with you?
Strangely enough, no, and I don't know why. Because he was such an easy guy to get along with. I think, you know, I think he was one of these guys. First of all, he never struck me as a person who had a lot of dislikes about people. He never badmouthed people. He was really a genuine man, you know, and I think it shows in his movies. It's amazing. He didn't have chips on his shoulder, you know.
Yeah. You in the making of, there's the one instant or one scene where the three little rail cars and the one, and then Buster dug his heels and he wanted the map on his head.
I know. You know what? To this day, I still talk to Dave DeVolpe about it. Dave was the assistant to John Spotton, who shot the documentary. And Dave and we often talk about that incident. We can never really quite figure out what happened. I mean, to this day. And he wasn't angry. He was, you know.
How many days did you shoot for the Railroader?
We started out sometime in late August, early September. And I remember watching the World Series on television, so it was early October, around his birthday.
Well, the scene of his birthday.
Yeah, on the train. And the interesting thing about that train was CN gave us the Bedford, which was a private rail car, and we were towed right across the country from one side of the country to the other. I mean, you could imagine the cost if we'd have had to hire all that, plus another big car full of all the gear, cameras and crews and all the rest of it.
Well, they got a lot of promotion out of that film too. There was CN in almost every shot.
Yeah, they were great railroad people. Well, the great thing with Buster was that he was a railroad man. He loved the railroad, and he loved all the people, and they loved him, and you could tell it, you know. And it was amazing. Well, that amazing shot document when that big freight comes to stop, he just grabs the thing.
Yeah.
Like that, you got to know what you're doing to know that train's going to stop like that.
No, for sure.
It stopped it dead. It's amazing.
Now, there was a lot of little things that he did in the film.
But just to be with the guy, he was charming like that. Yeah. He would, you know, like throwing the cards in the air.
Did you learn much about directing from him?
It's hard to say. The way we made that film, we were also tired at the end. I mean, it was just such an honour to work with somebody like that.
And again, he didn't live very long after it came out.
No. Well, he had cancer, you know. We didn't know. And he was smoking a bit, having the odd beer, because he never touched anything. But I think he was such a, from my point of view, he was such beyond anything that I could have, possibly achieved, I mean. And then he started out, he was a baby being thrown around on the stage. He was pure theatre, vaudeville.
Is there one memory from that whole experience with Buster that really stands out for you?
One memory?
The minute someone says Railroad or Buster Keaton, is there one image that flashes?
Well, there's a lot, but I think when he finally, a year later, when he saw the film in Toronto, that was not long after that he died, actually. But I remember sitting there with just a couple of us in the theatre showing it to a critic, Clyde Gilmore, I think. And I remember Clyde said to Buster, "What do you think, Buster?" And Buster said, "The photography is beautiful." That's all he said. I mean, it was, you know, we could have had a lot more gags and stuff, but the way we shot it, it was just pick up and go, you know. Exhausting, really.